Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, with a fan-based, band-endorsed podcast. And thank you guys at Uriah Heep for the endorsement. It's absolutely, really just the most amazing thing to me ever. And I'm very, obviously, very excited about that. We've got an interesting song. We are now into the sort of bonus track section of the album Wonderworld. This song that we're talking about today is called What Can I Do? And it was written by Ken Hensley, David Byron, and Mick Box, according to the official Uriah Heep website, and was recorded for the Wonderworld sessions in '74. Originally released as Something or Nothing's single B-side. So if you remember back in the days of those really, miniature-looking LPs with the giant hole in the middle that you had to get that plastic bit for, and you had one song on one side and another song on the other side. Sometimes there were special releases where you had two songs on each side, but those were pretty rare. They were usually, promotional material or contest kind of stuff. Sometimes the 45 that you'd send away from the back of a cereal box. They also had these really weird ones that were square, and they were just like not much thicker than aluminum foil. They were just like a sheet that you put on, but they didn't have the big hole. They just had the little one like an LP would have, and they were really bendy and weird. There were all kinds of versions that came out. And then I want to say sometime in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, there was a fad of single cassettes where you would get one song on each side. It was, physically, it was a regular cassette, just with much less magnetic tape in it. And a lot of times the version that would be on the B-side would be an alternate version of that song, maybe an instrumental, maybe a radio edit versus the album version on side A. But in this case, we're talking 75, so we're looking at, or 74, so we're looking at actual, like 45s, the miniature versions of LPs. And then there was that really weird circular bit that it was, I don't know who designed that. It was a really neat design, and I don't know if that just dealt with weight distribution or stability or what it was, but there was basically like one design for that insert that you would put into the 45 for the longest time. And then, some other ones came out and it got kind of trendy for a little while, and then 45s went away. But in any case, it was a neat thing to have. I had a stack of 45s. I had a handful of single cassettes and have no idea whatever happened to them. Probably just gave them to friends or whatever over the years, or donated them to Salvation Army or whatever. But in any case, we've got a good song for you. So now we're in the bonus track. Now, this is the first bonus track, or the only bonus track that was actually released. The rest, the other two were previously unreleased versions that we'll get to in next week, as I finish off the Wonderworld album and head into, I believe it's High and Mighty, which I am a little more familiar with than I was Wonderworld, but this album has been so pleasantly surprising to me. I kind of get why people are a little less excited about this album, because it's very eclectic. We've gone from real consistent, almost thematic albums to now back to an interesting collection of songs. I know there was a lot going on in the band at the time that was probably the cause of that. Not going to get into that, because the music that we have is the music that we have from whatever it was that created it. But it kind of goes back towards, the first album, Very Heavy, Very Humble, where it feels like it was a collection of songs that were written and put together on an album versus an album that was written together, if that makes any sense. But the sound of it's good. The songs are all good. I imagine it was very difficult to choose the order of songs on the album. And when they got to this one, whoever it was, whether it was the band or whether it was management or most likely the record company, said, no, we're not going to release this as part of the album. We'll do it as a B-side. So that will probably boost sales, because, if you're going to buy the album, you're not going to buy the single unless you have a reason to buy the single. So for collectors, completists, major fans of the band, they're probably going to go out and buy the single just because there's a song that they're not getting on the album. I'm one of those people. If I really like a band, I'll do that. Obviously, with Uriah Heep, I've gone back and found, as many of the bonus tracks as I know exist. I've located, physically have all but a handful of them. But certainly, if they're a top band for me, I'm going to buy up everything that I can because I want to hear everything that they did, whether it's a scratch track, an instrumental version, whatever it is. I want to experience that. I want to get the full experience of that band. So certainly, it is a great marketing tool for record companies. Although I cannot say for sure. I don't have any firsthand or inside information as to why this was done. But realistically, it was most likely a record company ploy to boost the sales. And not only that, but you're also looking at another side of things, which is charting. So if you release a single and people aren't buying it because they're going to buy the album, it's not going to chart very well. You're going to get, a combination of sales and radio play and that sort of thing, requests, but you're not going to have a huge amount of success on that single because the fans are more likely to buy the album. But if you tack on something extra, if you give those album buying fans a reason to buy that, now you're boosting their sales, which boosts the numbers, which gives you a better shot at a top 100 song, a top 40 song, a top 10 song, whatever it is. And you wouldn't get that unless you threw on something that gave those already dedicated fans a reason to spend even more money and buy something else. So it's twofold. I mean, it works for the band, it works for the record company, and it works for the fans. It's just a really weird thing that was done in that time. I don't really know how much of that's done now. I don't pay attention to it since there's no real single releases anymore. You just buy the particular song you want, you download it, or you get the album or the CD. I don't really know. I don't even know if singles exist anymore. As far as I know, they don't. I have not seen any in a long time. So I'm going to guess it's a little bit more challenging for the record companies. So now what they're doing is, now they release a new album and they say, okay, you guys pre-order this album. It's going to be out on April 12th. And then as soon as it comes out within a couple of weeks, oh, you know what? We have a deluxe edition of this album out. And it has like 5 songs more and 4 of them are live versions. And one of them is an alternative take of one of the songs on the album. And you're like, all right, I'll buy that because I really like this band. I want to buy that. So now you've shelled out for another version of the album. So I think that's probably the equivalent of that today. That's the marketing ploy today. And then if you're really a big fan of the band, now a lot of the bands and it seems with most of the bands I like are doing this, or the record companies are doing this, then you can get the deluxe edition, which is probably a CD, a DVD with interviews or studio footage or something like that, and then a t-shirt, which is cool. And the nice thing about those, quite honestly, is that they're very reasonably priced. They're around $25, $30, and you're going to spend probably $12 or $15 on the CD, $10, $12 if you download it. You're going to spend another, $10 to $20 on the DVD, and then another $20 for the shirt. So to pay $30 for all of that actually is very reasonably priced. Really good deal. So for me, I'm kind of just holding out for a minute nowadays to see if those deluxe packages come out. And if they don't, then I'll just go ahead and buy the album. But yeah, you got me, because there's albums that I bought 2 and 3 times. I bought Living the Dream twice already. It's the first time was before I knew about that ploy, and I knew that there was one for Uriah Heep, and also before I started doing the show. So I didn't really know about the bonus track. I hadn't dug into it. And of course, now I've gone back and bought the other one with the DVD and all that. It's a really cool behind the scenes stuff, interviews with everybody, touching on some of the songs and the history of them. And it's such a great album. So anyway, lots of great stuff, lots of great material out there. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about this wonderful song, What Can I Do by Uriah Heep from the Wonderworld album, originally discovered on the Something for Nothing single as a B-side. Some really nice playing here. We're, coming off of the song Dreams. If this were to have been included on the album in the order that the deluxe CD is done, and Dreams wasn't the last song, I would imagine that this would have been stuck somewhere in the middle of the album, but because I think Dreams was such a great way to end the album. But I really like what the drums are doing here. Lots of colorful fills, some very classic Lee Kerslake stuff, that opening fill, that diddle-da, diddle-da. I really like that. It's very common for him. Cozy Powell is another one that played that quite a bit. And I don't know if those two ever met, hung out, whatever, but there are definitely some similarities between the two drummers. And of course, we've got some classic Lee Kerslake snare crashes at the same time. Really nice, simple riff, but it just lends a good, warm feeling. I don't know where the song itself is going lyrically yet, but it's kind of a warm feeling. The keyboards are a little bit dominant over the guitar in the mix, a little more to the right, and the guitars are a little bit more to the left. Bass is pretty simple and straightforward at this point, but it's got a good feeling to it.
I wish you'd stop and give a helping hand, for I guess I'm only half a man. I feel the only way for me to live is just to give you everything I can give. 'Cause without you, what can I do?
Well, I think we've all felt that way at some point or other where we can't accomplish something ourselves and we need someone's help. And we feel like we're not a full person because we haven't found a way to do it ourselves. A lot of times leaning on somebody else can be a very difficult thing. The need for it both to complete whatever the task is, but also just the emotional side of not being able to figure it out for yourself or being able to complete for yourself, especially if you're kind of a loner, can be really difficult. So I think a lot of people could probably identify with the lyric. Really good delivery, of course, very interesting. And let's see where it goes next. I want to point out a little bit about the bass line here because it's really interesting. Of course, Gary always plays interesting bass lines, but this is particularly interesting because he's switching back and forth to two different playing styles. So for the first half of the verse, he's playing the opposite of where the beat is. And then in the middle of that, then he starts playing on the beat, and then he does a fill behind the vocals. It's really interesting how that can keep the groove to a song moving forward, especially with a straight drum beat. So normally you would have the bass would play on the bass drum, the snare drum, if you're just playing it straight. He's actually playing in between the bass and the snare for that first half, which I really like. And I love that strategy. It feels like it just grooves a little bit better. It makes it a little bit more interesting. Instead of having a bunch of sound and then a blank space and a bunch of sound and a blank space, you've got sound all the way through. You've got something that's keeping it balanced, which I really like. So good choice on that.
Being helpless is a habit of mine. No one else can understand. You are the one to help me to survive. If you're any friend of mine.
Well, that was a lovely change there and a really nice, quick, layered harmony. I think that a lot of times the harmonies are really all together, or you'll have a harmony together and then one more piece comes in. But I really like the way that they staggered and layered that. That sounds really good. Kind of every voice gets a chance to be noticed and heard instead of it just being one collective sound. So that's nice to do every once in a while, too.
Being helpless is a habit of mine. No one else can understand. You are the one
Well, I was expecting a solo in that first section, but what we're treated with is actually just a nice, simple pass of the riff again. But what I really like about it is it's not technical. There's not a lot of layers. Sometimes you just need to do something that's a little bit simple, and that's something that's very simple. You don't have to focus on it too much. You can just relax and enjoy what you're listening to without having to figure out what's going on. And sometimes you just got to do that. There was a weird drum fill in there that I thought was a little bit awkward. It just kind of felt a little bit rushed, but it actually works out in the timing. It just sounds a little bit rushed to me. But overall, very cool.
Yesterday you gave a helping hand to someone you'll never understand. Though I tried to tell you of this way, you said I had nothing constructive to say. But without you, what can I do? Yeah. What can I do?
Well, I'm a little disappointed that there wasn't a solo in the song. I think there could have been, even 4 or 8 bars that would have been cool to have. But, it's a pretty straightforward song for the most part. I do like that there was a little bit of a variation on the way the keyboard was played towards the end there. Love the harmonies. It was really nice that they brought that back from the earlier section. Sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of a throwback, because if you just have like that one little section that just stands out and it doesn't ever come back into the song again, then when you hear it again, it's like, yeah, but that was it. There's no more of that. And if you really like that part, then you're just stuck without it. But in this case, they brought back the harmonies and they sound really good. There was that one extra high harmony too, which was really nice. But overall, a good song, a nice straightforward song, one that I could see actually being very radio playable. So even though it was a B-side, I could see this as being something that could have been potentially popular. But it's so difficult for the record company to decide sometimes what to release. And a lot of times it's not the songs that you would expect. It's not the songs that you would push necessarily as the band, as the musicians, but when the PR guys are making the choice from the record company, they're going to say, all right, this is the one. We think this has the best chance of success, and you're going to play it live and blah, blah, blah. And then we got to stick something on the other side. But honestly, I like this song. It's short. It's a little bit long for radio play. It's just over 3 minutes. And it was like 2.5 to 3 minutes was really good in the 70s for radio play. But you could also get longer songs on the radio. It's just that those were the more playable ones, because you could get more songs in per hour, which meant more revenue for the radio station. And that's how it works. So, but great song. I really like it. I'm glad that it was included on the deluxe CD. Hopefully you guys, especially if you're hearing this for the first time, enjoyed it too. It's a great classic Uriah Heep song. I think it fits in very well with their music and very well with this album. So that's it for this week, guys. We made it. It is Friday, and you are free to go about the world and do whatever it is you're going to do. I hope that you have a great weekend. We will be back on Monday with the next 4 episodes of the podcast. 4 more songs. We're going to be finishing up Wonderworld and heading into the next album where we have some changes. So take care, guys. Enjoy. Be safe. Be kind to each other. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!